And joining us now is Brzezinski. He is a former Deputy Assistant U.S. Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO Policy, and he's currently a Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins us live from Washington. Welcome to TRT World. Your analysis and reaction right now, it's been such a big day to what has happened in Kherson. Is it really a victory? Is it a real retreat? How do you see it?
Maria, well, the footage you were showing is the first I've seen, and I got to say it's pretty dramatic and is unquestionable. It is a strategic victory for Ukraine. As you pointed out, this is a major regional capital, the only regional capital that Putin had been able to seize in this second invasion of Ukraine. And with its recapture, its return to Ukraine, it brings an enormous amount of geographic, military, and psychological value. By controlling this west bank of Kherson, Ukraine can now threaten key Russian supply lines that Putin needs to defend and sustain Crimea. And this is a humiliating defeat to Putin. He just recently annexed the city illegally. And it underscores, to the Ukrainian people, to the international community, and to the Russian people, that the wind is in Ukraine's sails. So this is very important.
The wind is in Ukraine's sails. So is this a time for Ukraine to maybe negotiate, would you say, Ian?
No, I'm not in the camp that has been trying to press Ukrainians into negotiation. If there's anything to talk about, it would be the removal of all Russian forces from Ukrainian territory. And Ukrainian territory, I mean, what was defined in 1991, and that includes Donbass, Luhansk, and of course, Crimea. If that's what the negotiation would be about, the withdrawal, the swift withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukraine, that's probably worth considering. But no, right now, otherwise right now is not the time to negotiate with the Russians. Now is the time for the West to really ramp up its assistance to Ukraine, to strengthen the wind in its sails. And by that, I mean doing basically the following: increasing the flow of our weapons and ammunition and supplies to the Ukrainian military, increasing the quality of capabilities of that equipment, longer range artillery, longer range rockets, aircraft, tanks, things that will enable Ukrainians to really transition to maneuver warfare to push the Russians out. And then, of course...
So sorry to interrupt, but what they will send and what you're saying is needed, you're saying to push the Russians out, will that be enough to really win? What we need and what NATO could send, especially the US?
Well, if we were to increase the flow of the equipment we're providing and add capability to it, for example, through tanks, through aircraft, through longer-range artillery, higher volumes, I think that would enable the Ukrainians to decisively push the Russians out of their territory. And that would be a victory.
And just to quote what Dasha said, that Russia is explaining this as a strategic maneuver that was necessary. Do you think that they could regroup and just, bring some surprise in a different way on the battlefield?
Well, if you watched Shoigu's announcement, the Minister of Defense of Russia, his announcement, this canned presentation with his commanders reporting to him, requesting permission to withdraw, it was something out of a grade B movie, which really, to me, underscored the Russians are not comfortable with this situation.
And where was Putin in that? Sorry to interrupt. Where was Putin in that theater of the explanation?
He clearly didn't want to be anywhere near that. And it makes me wonder why they canned it this way instead of just announcing it in the normal press conference to minimize its impact. But to have the Minister of Defense in this canned presentation act with his commanders really actually, I think, inadvertently highlighted this significant defeat to the Russian people. So Putin definitely didn't want to be around it. And maybe he's basically positioning Shoigu for blame.
Very interesting note to end on there. Ian, fantastic to have you on the show. Hope to see you again soon. Ian Brzezinski, former Deputy Assistant U.S. Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO Policy.